where they kind of separate, but I know you've used them. The idea between traveling, wandering, and adventuring. And I'll just kick off the idea because we are talking about wandering, and the actual definition says traveling aimlessly from place to place. So inherent in the definition is this aimless wandering without purpose, without reason, without an intent. And I think some of the times what we're talking about might not be wandering, but I'm gaining your expertise on this.
Yeah, no, the aimlessness, the sailboat without the rudder, that image to me is really the being adrift, letting the wind and the waves take you. I wouldn't say that I travel in the same way as I used to. I think it has something to do with being in my early 30s. That I travel with intent, to find healers, and to learn more, and actually, travel with kind of a mission. So even though we'll arrive in a town and then ask locals and find out where the healers are and maybe wander around to figure out where they are. I think wandering in the grander scheme of things, in the sense of wandering the earth and hitchhiking, or some people ride rails, which I've never done, or just buying a one-way ticket somewhere and figuring it out. I think there is so many capacities to wandering which have, I think, therapeutic values that aren't contained only within this kind of, I'm going to just go into the world and let it take me. I think there is a smaller the way to do it as well. There's a lot. There's like mindfulness meditations that you can just kind of wander, or pack a small bag and just head in a direction, which is what I used to do in France all the time. Just hit the road and just figure it out. And then so we're traveling. Maybe it does contain a destination per se. As I had mentioned before, wandering is just a direction, and I think, to take back to your original question, then you take in adventuring, which I think has some sort of extreme nature to it in some way, whether it's mountaineering, whether it's going to a place to jump off of cliffs, what base jumping it's called, to go to a place just to scuba dive, because that's what attracts you to that area. Very often, people go on the web and they'll purchase all these packages or connect with people of like mind. But I met a guy in his late 30s who was biking from Alaska to Argentina, and it's really interesting because it's kind of adventuring, because he's doing extreme mountain biking of mountains and crazy passes. He's planning it because it's Argentina's the goal, but he's kind of wandering because he doesn't know where the hell he's going from day to day, and kind of just taking it as it comes. So I think, if for some special souls out there, maybe in the latter stages of their journey, who really want to just push the buck, I think you can combine it all. And I think that you can wander and find yourself in a place like I did and end up scuba diving every day. So there's so many, they're interchangeable, but on the same token, wandering won't always lead you to adventure. It can also just lead you to where you need to be, and sitting with yourself somewhere for a long time by yourself, and that has equal value.
I remember when I left my my second tour of duty at the office, and a quote kind of popped into my mind that I shared with my coworkers that seemed to resonate with wandering. And I don't, maybe some of the audience has seen it. Obviously, it's a pretty popular movie, but in the idea of Pulp Fiction, at the end of Pulp Fiction, where Jules is going to quit the business of being that hitman mafia type of OC. He's like, well, what are you going to do? He's like, I'm just going to walk the earth, man. He's like, what do you mean walk the earth? He's just like, I'm going to walk the earth till God puts me where God, wants me to be. And that idea to me is the essence of wandering. If we're just talking about wandering in its small, little encapsulated self, then you touched on travel and you touched on adventuring, and I do think they all have this center point. The one that I think we left out, and it doesn't necessarily apply to this Venn diagram, but I think it might be something that applies to maybe some of the audience of what they do, which is a different aspect altogether, which is vacationing. You know, a lot of us get our 2-week holiday or 3-week holiday in the year, and we jump off to an island somewhere, and it's an all-inclusive resort, and I just don't want to think about work for 2 weeks. I just want to melt away into nothing. And there's nothing wrong with one versus the other. I do believe both are forms of escapism, but I just find one might bring a different set of virtues and values away from that experience. And I'm wondering, during your wanderings, your travelings, what are some of the virtues and things that you've gained from something like that, as opposed to vacation? Because I'm sure you've been on vacations as well.
Yeah, I gotta give it up to Jules in that way. That always gets my juices pumping with the notion. And I feel like I just did it in Central America a bit as well. Just like literally hear about a spot, go, and then just walk the earth looking to heal everybody I could possibly meet, walking into a spot and just hang out with Mayans and just not even, they don't speak Spanish. I just kind of look at something, I see that it's wrong, I fix one, and then there's a line, and just being of service without any reciprocity in mind. And I'm as soon as you said it, I was like tempted to go do it today. I'm like, I'm buying a ticket, man. But going just to give you a little perspective on where I'm coming from in terms of vacation. Yeah, I've been on some, but look at the word. I mean, I think sometimes it's nice to analyze what we're talking about here. For me, there's a difference between vacation and recreational traveling. Vacation is vacating. You're vacating the premises with your emotional, psychic, and spiritual baggage, simply taking it to another spot, bringing it there. Hey, this is me in this context. Here's a picture of me on the beach with nobody there, even though there's thousands of people around you, whatever, and then, you go drink drinks or whatever, but you don't really shift. I mean, you're not transferred. You're tanner, sure, maybe a bit fatter, maybe you've had lots of sex, maybe you've done whatever, and gone on a couple cool little adventures and stuff. For 2 weeks, I think that's therapy. It's the difference between art therapy and being an artist. As we're recreational travel, you're recreating yourself in other cultures, in other contexts, losing yourself to see who am I in this land. And I would generally recommend to most people to just either buy a one-way ticket or just go for 3 months, minimize, the minimum, because you really, to see that transformation really take form, to really let it coalesce in who you are for the rest of your life, I think you need immersion. And immersion requires you to give it the time that it deserves. And I don't think 2 weeks you're gonna, find enlightenment in India. You might, but I mean, having as a person who's not been to India, it's as such a large country, I would think that you need at least 3 months to give it, kind of to become the new Indian you, whatever that looks like to you.
I found something in my wanderings that exemplifies that point directly, and I think we were talking a little bit before we actually came on the air and started recording, which is the length of time you're talking about and how long it takes before it kind of you feel fully immersed in it. And both times that I've done long, extensive periods of travel or adventuring or some combination of the three, was this connection and necessity towards technology. And it takes, 2-3 weeks of being immersed in something without having that Wi-Fi connection, always 100%, without having your computer right by your side, without being bombarded by the news that wandering brings about, and this idea of this long journey or exploration kind of overtakes you like a wave, and you realize what it's like to be human again, connected to the source. And you don't realize how addicted you are to some of these things until you go without, and it's this great detox. It's like being thrown in the cell prison, the padded wall, and you just have to kind of wait it out. But instead of being in the padded wall, you're in this beautiful jungle with these amazing sounds, this amazing fruit, things never tasted the same way, and you're opened up to these your five senses again. You don't realize how many of these senses have been dulled over time, and you don't get that same experience and that same value of life. And I think that's what I appreciate so much when I do go travel for a long experience, periods of time.
Oh, definitely. To, arrive in a place that you've never been to with food you're not familiar with, and constantly looking around every corner with fresh eyes. I believe it's a sort of rebirth in a lot of ways that really allows this sense of freshness and newness. And I'm really of the mind that this sort of wandering can be done. I mean, it can be done anywhere. I think it's amazing how many times I'll go to a town I've been to before and not for years, and just kind of wander aimlessly and come across the right people at the right time, and realizing that once I detach from this degree of a destination, how that flow really does exist everywhere. But I think when you travel, the synchronicity is so much larger. You're looking for it. You're hungry for it. You're meant to, you just see someone and they're glowing. They really, you just know that you're meant to meet them. And very often you'll remember them with or without technology for the rest of your life. And they're waiting for you. I just simply believe that if you feel inspired to go somewhere, you're truly in the flow again.
It's important for the audience to realize a point that you made, which is you don't necessarily need to go somewhere to experience this level of wandering. Often people think that I need to save up this money. Traveling is so expensive. But there's a certain amount of the idea of wandering that can be done locally, I find. There's a lot that people haven't explored domestically, around their own cities, around their own rural town. And something that brings about that for me is using the old 2 feet, just going out for a walk. When I travel to a city, that's something I really like to do. I like to wake up early in the morning, when normal people are going in the area are going to work, and just wander the city with no destination, no map even, but just using my own ability to get back to where I started, and kind of observing the normal culture and the shift of how people are living their lives. And I think that's something you can even do in your own city or your own town. It will give you a fresh set of eyes on something that you normally probably take for granted and you see on a repeated basis, and you probably see it from a different angle. So I don't think wandering needs to be exotic, needs to be something that you post on Facebook that other people can sit there and be jealous of, but it can take place right where you are.
I mean, I think